Hey guys, Jengar here. Welcome to today's realistic review in which we are taking a look at the Soviet MiG-15 8.3 battle rating in the line, the MiG line, a very interesting line. This used to be one of the top tier jets when I started playing RRB. And I really did not know anything about jets back in those days. It was just all beginner stuff and getting used to this mode, but the good old days, man. Very good memories to this plane. It was always, back in those days, one of the best climbers, one of the best planes in the vertical maneuvering and stuff like that. Was very interesting back in those days. It could turn very well, sustained turning, although it cannot roll for the life of it, of course, as we all know. But these days, of course, it faces a whole different set of planes that have been added since all those years ago when I first played jets and stuff like that. And well, it is kind of interesting. You're facing a whole lot of Sabres in this plane, whole lot of Skyhawks these days, and a lot of planes with missile capability, which is well, it makes the gameplay a lot different from what it used to be. And yeah, it might not be as fast and it might not be as good in the vertical because you're facing up tiers most of the time in this plane. So there is that. But of course there is matches at its own battle rating and in down tiers. So sometimes it does happen, and that's where it absolutely shines. And you can definitely make it work in the matches where you're facing better planes. You just got to be a little bit more patient. That's my vision. You've got to stay out of those missile shooting first fur balls that you always see and then come in. And you're still very capable of outturning things as long as you don't roll too much. Well, there is that. So no afterburner in this plane, no radar, an air brake that functions reasonably well, and we have no missiles in this plane, unfortunately. But yeah, there is that. Guys, if you are not subscribed yet, many of you are not yet. About 45 to 50% of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed. What are you waiting for? Smash that subscribe button and get into the community, participate, like the video, leave me a comment and share if you really like this video. Anyway, let's go into the details of this plane. The maximum speed in the MiG-15 is 1046 kilometers an hour at sea level without an afterburner, so it doesn't have that. At 4500 meters, she'll go up to 821 kilometers an hour, and at 6500 meters, she'll take you to 724. These speeds are in indicated airspeed. The top speeds in a dive is 1075 before she redlines, and she will rip apart somewhere after 1140 kilometers an hour. I've dove down from 8 kilometers, from 9 kilometers, basically always came back to that 1140 when I crashed into the ground. Something to do with the drag, something to do with the acceleration, that it's very difficult to crash this plane into the ground and rip it, or rip it before it crashes into the ground is actually what I wanted to say. There is control stiffening in this plane, but you have to realize that you already start with atrocious roll rate to begin with, and then you have big ticks in the aileron compression at around 700 kilometers an hour, and after that you get another one at 900 kilometers an hour. After 950 kilometers an hour, this plane is basically a brick. If you want to roll out of a steep dive and you have to roll because you're flying reversed, you're going to be in trouble. So be aware when you're close to the ground when it comes to that, because it doesn't really roll anymore. It feels like a heavy bomber after that point. So be careful in the end of your dives in this plane. The stall speed of this plane lies around 125, which is quite acceptable, better than average, that's for sure. This plane has good firepower, although it is effective at short ranges. At the longer ranges, the velocity is not big enough and it has a big drop off, both the 23s and the 37mm drop off. So it's a short range shotgun kind of plane that you want to use it as. The ammo loads are below average, unfortunately. You run with one 37mm N37D cannon with 40 rounds, which is, well, it's average. And then that is supported by two 23mm NS-23 cannons with 80 rounds per gun, and that is definitely below average. So there is that. For the 37 I used air targets, which has the most of those FI rounds, fragmentation rounds. Then you have the armored rounds and the default rounds, and the armored rounds are basically the AP rounds if you want to have APIs in there, and the default rounds are a combination of those two. For the 23mm you can start with the air targets as well. They have the most FI rounds again. The stealth belt is basically better than the armored target belt when it comes to armor piercing rounds. It's just completely armor piercing, the stealth round, while the armored belt has one component of FI. So be aware of that. You can, if you want to go for the ground attacking, then you're better off with stealth. And there's a default round with a combination of the two. This plane has good acceleration in a straight line and in a dive. And the energy retention is very good in the vertical and in the horizontal. So that is all good. The climb rate is one of its shining points. It's excellent. Really nice at the battle rating where it sits. Turn time in the plane is very good. Great with flaps. The flaps only rip off at around 700 kilometers an hour, which is quite acceptable actually. For most turn fights you will be in the 700 range. So you can definitely deploy them at points where you're gonna need them. But yeah, I mean, also often you will be too fast for them, so be careful there. The roll rate is absolutely atrocious. It is terrible. It is one of the main downsides of this plane, next to the guns, which are not very effective compared to other guns. For example, I came from the Israeli line, starting to fly these things again in the Soviet line, and you really notice the difference. Those French DEFA guns that the Israeli use are absolutely glorious. When it comes to comparison to these guns, it's an easy choice. You will always go for those DEFA guns, which are much more effective at the longer range and just as lethal in shorter range. But yeah, roll rate is the second major downside to the MiG-15s. Maneuverability overall is average, because you do have that turn time, sustained turn time. You just want to minimize the amount of rolling you do, because once you start rolling, it just really starts to degrade into something where you don't want to be. Overheating in this plane is bad. When you run it at 100% all the time, you are going to overheat quite quickly. And once you overheat this plane severely, and I mean deep into the amber, you don't even have to go into the red, it returns to that point quicker and quicker. And seemed to me quicker than average than other engines, but yeah, this engine seems to be quite susceptible to overheating. It's a very good shot here by the Kai 200, by the way. Would have loved to gotten him in one of those other approaches, but man, my aim is just... My aim with these guns is not where it should be yet. But I did have fun in the MiG-15, I have to say, because it is just a very sturdy plane. When it takes damage, it keeps flying, and you don't rip it that easily. I mean, I didn't manage to rip it, so it's a very steady platform in your hands. You feel very much comfortable in this plane. You can pull, you can do anything you want. You can be at high speeds, you can be at low speeds. The plane can take a lot of shit. It handles things very good, very well. Can take good damage, as I said. It's also very small profile, so people have a lot of trouble actually landing shots on you. It is one of the most tiny planes in the jet game, basically, and that is also a huge advantage when it comes to survivability. Next to that, it is quite armored, so yeah, all in all, I quite like it. It is just the aim, man, that I mean, I'm making the right moves, I'm making decent approaches, but getting those shots to land, you really need to use it as a shotgun and don't use it at longer ranges. This actually still is longer ranges, 600 meters, although I do land those shots. It does happen sometimes, but yeah, man, that is actually 600 meters is still long range in a MiG-15. Preferably below 400 meters is where you shoot at people with this thing. It makes it much more efficient with the shells and the ammo. Repair cost in this plane is 7,509 Silver Lions. That is actually good repair cost, nothing to complain about there. The rewards in this plane are 392% multiplier for the research points and a 525% Silver Lion modifier. The research points are below average when it comes to this battle rating, and the Silver Lions multiplier is actually quite good. So yeah, it's a Silver Lion grinder when it comes to that, but the research points is not really great at. This plane is a boom and zoomer that can, basically more an energy fighter that can boom and zoom as well. Energy fighting it does very well because you use a minimum amount of roll in that roll. And boom and zooming it is less good at in the top ends because of the roll compression that it has. And you definitely cannot make shots land in this plane when you go above 700 kilometers an hour. Or you can maybe, but it's going to be difficult. The target doesn't have to move. Once the target moves and you have to roll at high speeds, forget about it. It is not going to happen for you. This plane can also turn fight, but it cannot dog fight, so you have to be careful there. It cannot roll for the life of it. Once you come into a rolling scissors or something, forget about it in this plane. You have to get somebody in a sustained turn fight, basically. So I wouldn't call it a great dog fighter. It can turn fight, but yeah. Hey guys, so here we are after the match. So yeah, as I said, you cannot really call this a dog fighter slash turn fighter. It can turn fight, but it can't roll. And in most turn fights, you absolutely need that roll. So it's limited in that roll when it comes to that. Once you have to start rolling, you're gonna very often lose the fight. And especially since the air brake doesn't really work anymore after 700. Between 0 kilometers an hour and 700 kilometers an hour, the air brake seems to be less effective. And well, I've noticed many times that you get into trouble when you get into a rolling fight, which is for me limited when you're talking about dogfights. I have a lot of automated moves, and a lot of that involves rolling. Maybe it's just my flight style, but you can definitely turn fight in it, sustained turns without much rolling. It will do fine with that. Actually, it will excel there, but yeah. Boom and zooming, bit limited because of the end dive, as I said. Energy fighting is quite nice in the plane. Vertical maneuvering was nice, but in the up tiers you get these days in this plane, it can be quite difficult, but yeah, you do get your results in this plane. I think it's a steady performer. Nothing wrong with this plane at 8.3 battle rating. Yeah, so I did have fun. Although it may not be the best plane in this world at the battle rating, it is definitely decent enough, and I found it a lot of fun. Just that aim, man, those guns, phew, they are not easy. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, become part of this community. If you are already a subscriber, don't forget to like the video, do leave me a comment, and if you really feel like helping out today, make sure to share the video with your friends and let them know about the channel.